Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, May 10th, 2013. Well, today I'm leading off with a story with huge implications for not just regional war in the Middle East, but possibly world war. It's the attacks by Israel on Syria on the beginning of this week, Sunday, and also over the weekend. It's actually after the weekly news wrap-up wrapped up last week. The implications are huge. The Israelis reportedly, attacked a research facility in Syria, a chicken farm, but also the main reason for their attack are to try to destroy missiles being sent by Iran to Syria that the Israelis are afraid are going to end up in the hands of Hezbollah. Now, this is a fourth-generation Scud called the Fatah 110. This missile is a precision-guided missile with a 1,000-pound payload and a 185-mile range that can pretty much hit just about any target in Israel from Lebanon. Now, there's a history of Hezbollah firing rockets into Israel from the north, and Hamas, which is only a ceasefire down there in the Gaza Strip, firing rockets into Israel from the south. And yes, there's plenty of sin to go around. The Israelis have been brutal in their response. They're building on occupied territories. But that's not my point, to try to assess blame. What I'm saying is that this is spiraling out of control. The Iranians say that they're going to have a crushing response. A tit for tat. Are they going to attack, a major city like Tel Aviv with some kind of chemical or dirty bomb or whatever, or rocket attack? And then are the Israelis going to then attack Iran? And the Strait of Hormuz could close down. The Chinese will be involved. The U.S. will be involved. Russia's going to be involved. The Russian fleet has a base on the Syrian coast, Tartus. The Syrians called it an act of war. Whatever you want to call it, it is an escalation. There is no peace process whatsoever. Secretary of State Kerry went and talked to the Russians last week to see if he could get them to have some kind of a political solution. Don't think anything happened of any good. I think the Russians are still going to supply Syria, their staunch ally. And again, the Russians have a naval base in Tartus. It's strategic. It's on the Syrian coast. It's on the eastern Mediterranean. It's very important to the Russians. The United States already has pieces of the 1st Armored Division in Jordan. The United States is backing the Free Syrian Army, which has links to Al-Qaeda. So you have Al-Qaeda backed by NATO and the U.S. and Israel, and then you have Hezbollah backed by Russia and Iran. I mean, this is a hairball. It's a mess. It's spinning out of control, and if or when there's world war, like Gerald Celente says, hey, listen, they're going to be paybacks. So it's out of control. It's escalating. If there's world war, it will affect every country on earth. The Straits of Hormuz could close down. The Suez Canal could close down. Oil could get choked off. Gas could be $10 a gallon. Financial markets could implode. The derivative markets could go haywire. This is going to affect the world if it spins out of control, and that is the trend. It is spinning out of control. That's what I wanted to tell you about today as the lead story. Next up, Benghazi whistleblowers testified in front of Congress. Many big bombs were dropped, but I got a couple of really big points I want to make. The Deputy Chief Gregory Hicks, the number 2 in Benghazi, he was in Tripoli. He was in Libya. He was in Tripoli, not Benghazi. He talked to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton on the phone while the attack was going on, just hours after it started, and told her Benghazi was under attack. He said nothing about any YouTube video, anti-Islamist YouTube video, or any protest that just happened, that morphed into an attack. No. As a matter of fact, when asked about the YouTube video, he said it was a non-event. Non-event. Now, think about this. Hicks, hours after the attack starts, talks to Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, his boss. She knew right then and there this was not a demonstration that turned into a riot. This was an attack, a terror attack. She knew it right then. So why the phony talking points? Why send Susan Rice out on the following Sunday talk shows to say, oh, this is a protest about this terrible video? She knew it was an attack from her, at the time, number 2 in Libya. He ended up later becoming number 1 because Ambassador Stevens died. Another important point, Hicks, the number 2, which turned into the number 1, was never interviewed by the people trying to figure out, what happened. Admiral Mullins and Ambassador Pickering never talked to him. They never talked to Hillary Clinton. But they had a report that said, well, nobody really is to blame for any of this. Really? So we know there wasn't enough security. Okay, got it. Got that. We all knew that. So next up, this is the headline that USA Today, I was surprised that they were pretty bold about this. Whistleblowers rescue requests denied at Libya consulate. Denied. Rescue requests denied. Who made that decision? We already know that the response team that was responsible for, going and save people who were embassies are under attack were completely cut out of the loop. They were a non-starter in all this, which I think is bizarre. But it was reported that that we could have flown a C-130 gunship or a C-130 aircraft with troops from Alviano Air Force Base in Italy down to Benghazi in about 4 hours. About 4 hours. Now we found out that the waves of attacks didn't just happen in 7 hours or 9 hours, 12 hours. And the military and the State Department and the Obama administration said we couldn't fly anybody there, within 12 hours. Really? We could have got a C-130 gunship down there. Ever see one of those in action? They can cut people to ribbons with infrared for hours from miles away. And, of course, the final stage of the attack were mortar attacks, so they were kind of far away. It may have worked out. John McCain said, hey, we could have flown, jets down there. Well, if a C-130 gunship has a top speed of, 367, 68 miles an hour, how fast do you think a F-15 at Mach 2 could get down there? I don't know, 30 minutes? He said they could have strafed them. They could have flown over. They could have scared them. They have 20-millimeter cannon. They could have, fired some cannon shots around the area, or at least flew low over to think, oh, my gosh, they're sending in air support. We flew 20,000 sorties, NATO. And the U.S. is effectively NATO. They have a U.S. commando. In Libya. You mean to tell me we couldn't get any air assets there in 12 hours? Okay. Well, there was one group of servicemen that left Tripoli and went over there, and then they were going to send another group. And they were told to stand down. And so here's my big question there. Who made that call? We already know that Hicks was on the phone to Clinton, the top person at State Department. And Hicks made some little offhanded comment that, one of the military people told him that, wow, we can't believe a diplomat made a call for people to stand down. Really? My question is, who made that call to allow Americans to die, to not even try? Who made that call? What difference does it make? Hillary Clinton? Well, if you want to be president and you want the military to follow you, and everybody finds out that you allowed people to die without even trying to save them, how effective do you think your leadership is going to be, commander-in-chief, if you end up being the president? She hasn't announced, but that's the rumor. Widely accepted rumor that Hillary Clinton's going to run for president. Do you think the military is going to follow you? And doesn't that call into question your decision-making if you allow Americans to die? And for what some people say are political reasons, because it wasn't part of the narrative of that, boom, we got Bin Laden, we got the terrorist on the run. And I'm wondering how in the world anybody's even surprised that we had an Al-Qaeda terror attack when it was widely reported while we were, destroying Gaddafi, we were using Al-Qaeda operatives in part. We picked them up off the battlefield that were fighting coalition forces and dumped them into Libya. This was widely reported by the LA Times, ABC, CNN, CBS, widely reported. I had this on usawatchdog.com, that we were basically supporting Al-Qaeda, and we're surprised they're there. And yet we not only do we don't increase it, we decrease security in Benghazi. So who made the decision to allow Americans to die? Why the phony story about this stupid video that Hicks says is a Non-event. Didn't happen. Fiction. And what does this say about Hillary Clinton's decision-making ability, particularly in a high-tense situation? I think she made the wrong call. We should have at least tried to save Americans. Next up, have you heard about the Pew research poll? This is Pew. This is a big operation that says that most Americans don't realize that gun homicides have been cut in half since their peak in 1993. Let me say this again. Gun homicides have been cut in half. And according to Pew, most Americans don't realize that. Been cut in half since 93, their peak. Why do you suppose that is? Well, I can tell you why. I used to work in the mainstream media. The mainstream media selectively reports things. They lie by omission. And this is a big lie, and it doesn't really fit in with the anti-gun campaign, that we need to be safer. We need to be safer because, we shouldn't have the Second Amendment, or we should infringe the Second Amendment. When, the facts get in the way of the policy that some people want to employ. And the fact is, gun homicides have been cut in half. So why the big push for gun control? Why isn't there a big push for mental health? Why isn't there a big push to find out why so many people are taking depressants? Why isn't there a big push to find out why so many people are killing themselves? Now, more people kill themselves that die in car accidents. That's more than 40,000. Well, one of the side effects of some of these antidepressants is, a tendency to commit suicide. Unbelievable. Speaking of the Second Amendment and guns, I've been telling you about, I've been going, across the country in certain Walmarts, which is one of the cheapest places to buy ammunition, just checking. I'm not even buying it, just checking. You can't find 22 caliber shells. You can't find 12 gauge shotgun shells. You can't find 223, 40 caliber, 9 millimeter. You can't find anything, 30. You can't find anything. And then you hear all these stories about how the Division of Homeland Security, DHS, the Obama administration, basically buying up all this ammunition for, they said target practice, and then they want to really get a good deal, and it's, many times more than the amount of ammunition needed to fight a war in Afghanistan. And here's the bomb. I can't believe this got slipped out on ABC radio. Senator James Inhofe, a Republican from Oklahoma, said, it's the Obama administration. They're trying to dry up the market. They're trying to buy all this ammunition, including shotgun shells, 22 caliber shells. They're buying up all this ammunition to basically keep it away from the American public and basically to infringe on the Second Amendment right that Americans have. If you wanted confirmation that this was a real story, well, I got it. A U.S. Senator, James Inhofe from Oklahoma, says it's the Obama administration doing this to dry up ammunition, so keep it out of the hands of law-abiding American citizens who may want to protect themselves or target practice or whatever. That, to me, is a huge story. And my question is, what are we going to do about this? The Second Amendment shall not infringe. Isn't buying up all the ammunition, or at least driving up the cost to infinity, isn't that infringing on the Second Amendment? I want to thank everybody for supporting the site. Thanks for going to the donations button. Appreciate it. Thanks for all the comments. That's really important on the site. I love the comments. Sometimes the comments are the best thing about what's going on. People weighing in and giving their opinion. And I like all the civility, and I like all the integrity and the smart comments that people give. Thank you for supporting USAWatchdog.com. That's the way I see it. Have a good weekend.